I want to just as a way, by way of introducing Sumin, maybe I can just say just a few words about the notion of the augmented architecture, we say. So we've spoken about the informational architect, and now, in some sense, we move on to the notion of augmentation of the augmented architect, and how we can use some of these tools to somehow um, uh, empower the architect even more. The idea that somehow we can use technology as a kind of an extension of ourself has obviously been opened up and raised by Andy Clark and David Chalmers. This is back in the 1990s, and the notion of the extended mind became absolutely crucial to rethinking what it was to be human in some senses, because once you began to develop a cell phone and you began to store your all the phone numbers on the cell phone and everything else, it was, could you not perceive this technology as part of what they defined as the extended mind? Very controversial at the time, but nonetheless, it's proved to be, I think, a very insightful observation that then has been moved on to other kind of theses. Natural Born Cyborgs is a book that Andy Clark produced a few years later, where he takes that notion further, and basically what he's saying is that we have become cyborgs. It's been we've used this technology. It's become part of how we think. It's been absorbed in many ways, and the key concept here it comes from the world of neuroscience, and it's a notion of the plasticity of the brain, that the human brain has this capacity to adapt to these new technologies and to start thinking through these technologies. So he actually, although people like Catherine Hales have been saying that we've become post-human, he's saying no, we're quintessentially human, because it is precisely this kind of plasticity of the human brain that allows us to become these cyborgs. Dandy was, of course, he was a guest at Digital Futures 2 years ago. He came to Shanghai, and one of the comments he made at the time was this: actually, he was unhappy with the cover, because he's saying that actually we don't have to look like something out of a science fiction movie, because we're all cyborgs. We're all using these things. Even a walking stick makes us a cyborg. So it hasn't got to be futuristic. It's how we operate, and increasingly we operate in this world today. This is a kind of comment, of course, that's been made by Elon Musk, where he literally explains that in some way. All of us are already cyborgs. You have a machine extension of yourself in the form of your phone and your computer and all your applications. You are already superhuman. And I think that's a kind of a really interesting kind of concept to think about in terms of how we've been empowered and enabled and indeed augmented by these new technologies. And in fact, even with the context of AI itself, Joy Ito made this comment back in 2017. We shouldn't see it as a question about AI versus humans, but rather how AI can be a kind of like a supplement to a kind of a tool that extends the capacity of the human. So we're talking less about AI than extended intelligence. The other term that was used was intelligence augmentation. So with that, I would like to invite Samin to say a few words about the work that she's been doing on the theme of the augmented architect. Welcome, Samin.
Thank you very much. Yeah, uh, I think my presentation will kind of showcase what exactly Neil was just explaining. Hi everybody, and I'm very honored to be here today. And today my topic, as Neil was introduced, is going to be about augmentation in the context of architecture and technology, and as of this lecture series. And no doubtedly, and as discussed in a lot in this lecture series, AI is becoming a huge part of our lives. And we have to acknowledge that we human beings are no longer the only created beings. And it is time to re-establish a healthy and meaningful relationship between human intelligence and machine intelligence. And this book suggests that this new relationship should be proactively established by our workspaces, in our workspaces immediately, and especially by the leadership. Physicist Michio Kaku, who gave a series of precise predictions of our future based on scientific evidence, and he predicted that in near future, architects will be practicing using AR lenses. And not a surprise, commercialization of augmented reality glasses started to open up a lot of possibilities, especially since the release of 2016 Microsoft HoloLens. And market researchers also predict exponential growth of the markets of AR headsets and related technologies in near future. And the use of AR technology in warehouses and construction sites will become common and granted. And not only that, designers started to explore new possibilities of this technology to create new structural possibilities and new aesthetics. And to really question what different kinds of physical spaces that we can construct that are different from before we introduce this technology. And such as this pavilion constructed by my colleagues, Guilin Zhang, Cameron Newhan, and Igor Pantich, we have tried to answer a few such questions about what kind of different spaces that we can create with the introduction of new technology and being augmented with devices and data as us as ordinary humans. And furthermore, many believe that there will be much more that is coming. And as technologies are evolving, the author of this book, Brett King, states that we are living in the augmented age, where machines and devices are getting closer to our bodies. As we are already augmented with smartphones, we are already cyborgs. So he's stating that after the internet age, we are entering the augmented age, and our all daily lives are going to be changed with a lot of these technologies that are very close to our bodies. This video shows a lot of futuristic, and also, of course, Elon Musk stated that augmentation is essentially about how humans can more intuitively and easily control machines and communicate with data. So I define augmentation as a human enhancement, amplification by using various tools, devices, machines, robots that are close to the human physical body and or controlled ergonomically and intuitively. And these tools are not only AR headsets, but includes all kinds of devices and especially wearables. And for example, in this book lists out a lot of contemporary wearable robots known as exoskeletons or prosthetics. And for example, wearable robots include prosthetic limbs for disabled, which can be implemented and controlled with muscle movements or brainwave signals. And here are some examples of how different technologies are explored and researched by other people. There are also wearables can return haptic feedback. There are also robots can be remotely controlled. And also they can help workers to be stronger. And the exoskeletons designed for construction workers have been improving factory warehouse pipelines, predominantly in automobile industry. And some construction sites also started to employ this system to improve the process. However, there is still a lack of design research, in my opinion, questioning how these technologies can fundamentally change the way we design and construct, and what kind of new processes will nurture new kinds of architectural aesthetics and typologies. So how differently can we build? So that is the fundamental question we should ask or kind of explore. Obviously, I don't have much work to answer about exoskeletons, but in the next few slides, I would like to show some of my work that have been explored with the use of AR headsets to try to answer the same question: what kind of new construct or new aesthetics can we produce, or new spatial qualities and typologies? And in this video, I'm going to fast forward. In this video shows the work from the Bartlett Research Cluster 9 since 2016, taught together with Alvaro Lopez, and now it's taught by Igor Pantic and Jose Pareja, and also Alvaro Lopez. And our students, we have created a number of projects that are really exploring the use of augmentation, especially augmented reality headsets together with computer sensor and vision sensoring devices to communicate the constructing processes during the design and making, and testing out a lot of different material system, material crafting processes to create different portfolios to try to answer the similar questions and explore. So these are some just different projects that I'm gonna keep on playing. So for example, this one on the screen is showing how to use similar timber, bent timber to create this kind of complex structure that is algorithmically designed. And we also had the chance to test this method as a landscape installation. And during the pandemic, without being able to actually visit the site and build it by our own self, we were able to train the unskilled student volunteers on site to build our installation with only remote communication. So this was only possible by the use of AR. And we also introduced a cloud-based digital twin platform, which allowed us to supervise the local site from remote locations. So we were able to review the on-site process and from remotely, and the local crews were building it by the instruction from the AR lenses. So this was a two-way communication enabled by this technology. So these are the making process. And here you will see how we were, a little bit later, you'll see how we were, this is a digital twin platform. We were able to review the site process in daily basis to kind of compare the digital model and the real process. And as showed briefly before earlier, designed by Guilin Zhang, Kang Yuhan, and Igor Pantic, and we managed to build 100% handcrafted spin bent timber pavilion also thanks to the augmented reality technology, we were able to execute algorithmically designed loose forms quite quickly and directly into the actual product with relatively short preparation time and minimal amount of optimization and rationalization. So all of the brackets are also handcrafted as such. Maybe you'll show some on-site assembly process. And that's the loose form with pretty good comparable accuracy and relative accuracy. And so that's the resulting structure. Yeah, and most recently, we are currently building another version of this. So this is an ongoing project for a SIA gallery exhibition. And as we want to move on from being pure pavilion, but want to kind of demonstrate architectural applicability, we started to consider serious architectural problems such as enclosure, insulation, and glazing, and so on. And we are also trying to improve the working pipeline to be a little more efficient to be able to pre-assemble bigger panels and parts off-site. And here are some current process documentation, so some process photos. And it is still under construction right now, but we have few pieces. And here are some visions that what we are trying to create as a sample house. As a conclusion, I want to argue that the future of AI is not some kind of human-looking android, but an ordinary person augmented with technologies, just like the Iron Man. And as us as architects, we should really think about that kind of technologies and how to improve our physical realities and constructs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samin. That's absolutely beautiful work. Really, really gorgeous. Let me just, I wanted to just maybe add something to that, just briefly, then we can maybe open up to discussions about some of these issues. So let me go just one just comment really to think about the possibility of that augmentation, not just existing in terms of the inhabitant of the city, but also the city itself, that could be in some way enhanced by the use of AI. And I just wanted to raise one of the issues that have been that has been suggested about the possibility of it. In other words, we could look at the whole logic of the swarm that has been around for some time now, is to suggest that there is something we can conceptualize, a kind of connection between the way that any multi-agent system operates and a certain form of intelligence that emerges in any of these systems. So the title of Stephen Johnson's book, or the subtitle, "The Connected Lives of Ants, Brains, Cities, and Softwares," is to kind of suggest that maybe what we have with the city itself can operate through it like any other multi-agent system, and that includes neural networks and so on, can itself become to operate like a form of brain. There is this form of intelligence, in other words, it work within the city itself. On the left-hand side, the first book that was produced about this by these three scientists from the Santa Fe Institute, and then on the right-hand side, something that Roland and I published a few years ago. But I want to take that notion of the city as a kind of form of intelligence system, and think about how we can might be able to use AI to enhance that in some way. And this is the concept that has been developed in China by Alibaba. They have this notion of the city brain, which is to say how you might use this concept of the digital twin and use AI to kind of improve, enhance the performance of the city, in particular to look at traffic systems and how one can maybe control the traffic flow to improve the access to an accident, even to identify accidents before they've actually, as soon as they've happened, and to overcome the problem of traffic jams at rush hour and so on. And that, to my mind, is kind of like an interesting new development. They deployed it initially in the city where Alibaba is itself, which is an incredibly Huazhou, a city with real problems in terms of its traffic, and then elsewhere in China, increasingly in other cities around Asia, in Kuala Lumpur. I'm looking forward to the time when they start engaging with LA to improve the traffic there. The possibility then of thinking about how you might take that concept of AI as extended intelligence and think about the city as having intelligence and using AI to enhance that to make the city operate in a much more efficient way. So and this is, I mean, there's not much to be seen about this because it's all kind of it's on the screen, as it were, but nonetheless the effect has already been quite significant in how we can improve the operations of a city itself. So I just want to suggest that there is, and I'm not sure the city's going to learn to think. I don't know, AI makes you think as such, but I mean, AI doesn't think. But nonetheless, the possibility of taking the concept that Samin has been sketching out of the augmented architect, the architect enhanced through these new technologies, and indeed how AI could be seen as an extension of human intelligence, to think how the city itself could also be enhanced and how we can improve its operations. I won't say too much about that, but of course, the way in which we might integrate the self-driving car becomes central to the way in which we might operate together. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this point here and open up to some discussions